sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise
Accountability
together.
starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
Well, you know I don't care. about being marginalized and stereotyped. Because I
Apparently,
show up, huh?
I said
That's a
apparently.
lie.
Yeah, I show up every day. So I don't care what y'all say about me. And Lord knows, Diane, they've said a lot.
Now
Um,
Plenty,
that part is true.
you know,
plenty. So,
it,
Eric, I have a question for you.
yes,
So,
ma'am.
when your business blows up to be the billion-dollar business that it will be, will you still do this show and talk smack, or will you have to turn the smack talking over to somebody else to guard the brand? Because
Um,
I already talked about unionizing, so be careful on how you answer this.
so people have said to me, Eric, what you say could be offensive to, some potential retail partners. And what are your thoughts about that? Um, you know what, Diane? Um, and so at the end of the day, I need to be authentic. I'll
Right.
say it like that, right? I need to be authentic. I need to be truthful and authentic. The challenge along the way will be battling the ignorance. One, right?
Mm-hmm.
The concern about being stereotyped and marginalized, and I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about retail partners. That some of them will lack the courage to stay the course in the beginning because they'll get pushback, right, from an ignorant class who's not ready to move forward, right? And so I would expect that they would make decisions based on the dollar at the moment. Um, what my hope is, and we talk about this all the time, the question is, where will um, uh, I'll use the term woke people be, right? Of all nationalities. But in particular, where will black Americans be? See, because the conversation is always about fighting for people who won't fight for themselves, right? So as I wear my ADOS attire, and I'll tell you, when we were done with the show, I got to go to Ridgewood. I met a gentleman who owns a deli in Ridgewood. He's a Jewish guy, but is very interested in carrying a cobbler. And when I met him, I had on my ADOS hat, my ADOS face mask, and my ADOS shirt. Do you understand what I'm saying? So he understands. And see, and what I love about wearing uh, um, my brand, right? Who I am, right? How they see us, right? Because we've talked about all of this, how they see us, what is a black brand, so without me even opening my mouth, the very fact that I'm wearing it, where I stand. Much like a Jew who wears a yarmulke, or the Orthodox Jews who are dressed the way they are. Or a Muslim, right? You from the get go, as they say, who they are. So I don't want there to be any confusion. And so if I'm doing deals, it will be with people who are clear about who I am. And so I just feel good about doing that. And then, like I said, for the other folks, some will waver in the beginning because, they don't want to take risks. You can't make people take risks. But I have to be authentic.
Eric, I never found you a person to compromise your integrity,
Dude,
purpose, and
dude,
mission.
I've lost so
So,
much, but I've said this. I literally have lost, geez, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the funny thing is, when I remember, I have a spam caller calling in. I remember when I first left corporate America, and one day when the book comes out, it'll detail this. But I remember when I first left corporate America to come back into politics and to join my dad. You know, I considered myself to be the prodigal son. I left. And my dad asked me to come back because he just had a conviction, right? And he saw a talent that I had that, you know, could kind of, you know, help. And so I declined him several times. And in 2006, I left corporate, came to work in a family business. But like you said, Vincent, it wasn't about compromising, right? So I brought with me the excellence that I had learned in corporate America to apply in this business. The challenge was that the business was catering to politicians. We had been awarded a contract with the city of Newark, and elected officials are a different breed. They lack, in a lot of cases, discipline or, quite frankly, desire to do work, to do real work. And so you had me come in, right, Diane, you can attest to this, right? Because we got beat up for this. But when we came in with this communication contract, me as a former communications guy, chief marketing officer, creative director, I was going through this methodically in terms of how to brand the city of Newark, how to create a communication, you know, how to streamline communications, how to create touch points between constituents and the administration, as well as the council, right, and the departments. Because a lot of municipalities are lacking that, right? People don't know how to get to where. There's a lack of professional. We can go down a list of things. You know that because you are a former councilwoman. So I was going through that. We did a complete heuristic audit of the city of Newark. We interviewed dozens and dozens and dozens of residents to find out what their points of pain were. We interviewed the department heads to try to understand, did all of that, and then from that compiled a plan of action. They didn't want to hear it. See, because for them, they awarded a contract and they expected quid pro quo. We gave you a contract, we want something. What you're getting in return is professional work. You're getting the deliverable. But they wanted more. They wanted some political stuff. They wanted checks written to their campaign, all that other bullshit, right? For me, I was focused on just getting the work done. But then all of the arms of government, as well as editorial people from the Star Ledger who were in the pockets of these politicians, were looking now to torpedo us because we weren't going to play the game. We were just going to fulfill the contract and provide the deliverables. But that wasn't enough. So, yes, I did not compromise. We continued to push forward. We got ridiculed. We got lambasted in the Star Ledger. And in fact, there was a point where I looked at my brother and I said, listen, they're going to try to make criminals out of us. They're going to try to look and say, we were awarded this multi-million-dollar contract and we didn't provide services. Right? So we compiled like a 300-page book where we took screenshots and we had PDFs and we just outlined an entire brand book of everything that we had done, from billboards to other signage, to creating iconography, some of which you still see in this administration. And we presented that to Joan Whitlow because she came up to the office because she wanted to see proof that we had done the work. So because of those kinds of things, because Vincent, I argue that, if we played the game, we'd probably still be getting contracts, or be wearing federal jury. One of the two, right? Right?
Or Brooks Brothers suits
Yeah, but you know what I
and
mean?
Or
wingtips.
those cute
But
ankle boots.
yeah, but the same thing, with me in terms of candidates that I've chosen to work with, right? Or on this show, topics that I've chose to talk about, and politicians that I've chosen to hold accountable. All of those have come with a cost, or at a cost, I should say. And I don't bellyache about it, and I'm not bellyaching about it now. I am simply saying that it's real. And for those of you who are watching the show, you know it's real. Because if you got an uncle, an auntie, a cousin who works, a government job, let them say something sideways about the administration, and look how fast they're demoted, they're transferred, and if possible, fired. Right? So it does happen. And so this is the last thing I'll say about it. So I found it to be incredibly ironic that the very people who are benefiting by playing those games on the backs of taxpayers, that they were the ones who were out there talking about what I was getting, right? To talk about or to do what it was. Like, I'm not getting anything. And so here we are, say from 2010, 2011 to now, so 10 years. You now see, like, literally, all you gotta do is go look in the bank accounts of people. And you can tell who was rooking you and who wasn't. So time always reveals the truth. But I will continue to be authentic. I will be me. And my hope is that the business will survive it. If not, Diane, you guys will kick me out as the CEO.
That's right. Because I told you we unionizing. We gonna make sure. But Eric, that's a great segue into what we were briefly talking about yesterday about wanting to talk more about what's happening in local politics, people coming out, but also something tantalizing, of course, for Jody, because I know she tunes in around 11ish, and I'm sure Vincent will love to chime in on this to try and beat me down on. There is some Trump talk out there, so I guess we have to talk about it if we must. But yeah.
First, Diane, I do not relish or look for an opportunity to beat you down.
Oh my God, that's such a lie. Just the fact that you use the word relish means that, yeah, you rubbing your hands and waiting.
No, I don't. I mean, no, sincerely, I don't. I value your opinion, even though that it does differ. And I look for growth in both of us.
Well, Vincent, I'm actually disappointed in you then. I really am. I really am. I would have to come back with something better this time.
Diane, what joy do I get in beating down a person when the objective and the goal of this show is to lift people up and empower them? All it does is make me...
So what Kool-Aid was you drinking this morning? But okay, Vincent, I'll leave it right there. I'll accept it for what it is. Thank you.
All right, look,
Eric,
let us all look, I want to say this. We're going to meet at my house in the backyard, socially distanced. I just drew a tops board with my red brick, and I got my top filled with crayons and a quarter. Let's go. Vincent,
Make sure you got your 6-foot markers on the floor.
So, Eric, two things before you jump into local politics. Before we got on this show, I asked you about, would you give your mom an allowance? And you had an answer, and you can give your answer. And, of course, Vincent, you can respond. And the reason why I said that is my girlfriend from Texas sent me a text message this morning, a TikTok video that a friend did, and the kid asked his mom for the stimulus check. He said, well, white boy so-and-so's mom said they got a check for him, for the kids, and they gave him his check. Like, can I get my check? And she started rambling off, the bills that she pays, the food, the this and that and other. And she said, honey, you're in the red. You don't get a check. So it kind of made me think back on when my mom first came up from North Carolina out of nursing school to New Jersey, and she used to send back money to my grandmother. So she came up in 50, 60 something.
Mm-hmm.
So when she always did it every month, my grandmother got money in the bank or a check in the mail or cash in the mail, however they did it, all the way up to.
Right.
Up until my mother and my grandmother passed away, which 3 months apart was in 2015. My grandmother was still getting monthly checks, to the fact that if it had changed over in the last maybe 7 years, maybe 2010, 2007, that my grandmother would say to my mother, she wanted to make sure her money was in the account by the first of the month. So literally, my mother would call me. I would leave my office, go to my mother's house, pick up her card, go to Bank of America, withdraw the money, then go to Wells Fargo and deposit it cash.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how my grandmother wanted it for years. And every year the money got more and this, that, and other. So it wasn't just my mother, because my mother has 2 siblings. All 3 of the girls sent or gave my grandmother money every month. That was her allowance. It went on until, like I said, until she died. I'm trying to get my daughter onto the same payment plan. She's halfway there because she pays the cell phone bill. But I'm still a little in the deficit because I pay the car insurance. So my question to you is, would you give your mom an allowance?
Wait. Let me. I'm gonna.
Okay.
Okay. So your daughter pays whose cell phone bill?
She pays our cell phone bill.
So you
She
have.
pays mine and pays hers. So we have Apple. So everything on Apple.
You have a
iPhone,
family plan.
iPad. Yeah, she pays the family plan.
Got it.
I pay the car insurance.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of an allowance,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, and I said this off air,
Right.
it's relative, and by that I mean, if my mother is set, right, meaning that she has everything that she requires to be able to live the lifestyle that she wants to live, right? If she has all of that, then then I'm gonna say no. I don't give an allowance, right? Money goes into investments and savings for future, right? For children, for grandchildren, for great grandchildren that I don't have yet. Um, but if mom needs something, she knows that it will be there, right? So for instance, she doesn't have to worry about housing. That's all taken care of, right? She doesn't pay rent. She doesn't pay anything. That's all provided for. She's got a cell phone. The bill is all paid for. Her phone is upgraded every year. I mean, so I don't know. Like, I don't. That's not
So
allowance. These are
you
just
don't think
things.
that's an allowance?
No, these are just things that are taken care of, right? And then beyond that, the thing is, are you okay? Do you need anything? If you need, let us know. So there was a period of time where I don't even think she didn't need. I mean, she's on fixed income, right? She's a senior. She'll be actually 79 in February, but when the children were younger, she offered to watch them because I was paying, daycare. And I said, well, Ma, if you're gonna watch them, I said I'll pay you. And she didn't want to be paid, but I think Diane, she was getting like $1,500 a month, cash. So she the first time I handed her the $1,500, she didn't give it back, right? She said, I don't want to be paid. I don't want to be paid. These are my grandkids. But after I gave her the first $1,500, she took it, and so that continued for quite some time. And she was still living without paying rent and all these other kinds of things. So, she's taken care of. But like actually sitting down and carving out an allowance, I would say if she didn't have Social Security, she didn't have all those other kinds of things, and we needed to look and say, you know what, we need to create a fund so that she doesn't have to ask, right? Because you don't want somebody asking. You know, you.
Okay, so Eric, so maybe then the wording is a little different,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're doing is pretty much the same thing that my mom did with my grandma.
Uh-huh.
And what I did with my mom is that my mom was really, I was taking more probably than I was giving, but still I was giving.
Right.
I think it's more based on taking care of your family.
Yes.
Generationally.
Oh, now I
And
believe.
on,
Listen.
good ethics and morals to always looking out for your own.
But you know what?
Maybe
Beyond
that's
that, I
what it
want to
is in my
say,
model in life.
and it's not just monetarily, right? So my grandmother, who turned 98 on Christmas Day, she's starting to show signs of dementia. And it saddens me because of how close and I always called her my Nana, how close we've always been. And the fact that I can't see her because of COVID, right? But we do FaceTime. But my mother, who's 70, who will be 79, and her sisters, her surviving sisters, all take care of my grandmother. So they've all been cleared, and they're very careful about the bubbles that they're in, right? But they've all been cleared to be caregivers. So my mother spends a couple days cooking breakfast and dinner for my grandmother. Then my other aunts, they alternate off and on, and either will spend the night there and take care of her and do. So they have all, and they're all up there in age, but they have done that, right? I remember a friend of mine whose mom was in, and this was the first time I had ever been in a senior, in a, one of those like hospital, like care centers, right? And my friend's mom was there, and I went to go see her, and I was depressed. As soon as I walked in there, I saw old people in wheelchairs, despondent, right? Nobody paying attention to them, nobody stimulating them. As I listened, you could tell that many of them were there without any family ever having come to see them after they dropped them off the first time many years ago, right? And then when I saw my friend's mom, she had gangrene on her toe, right, and started to infect, and nobody had noticed it. The doctors and nobody had noticed it. We uncovered it because I walked past the bed and accidentally brushed the cover, and it uncovered her foot, right? And so
They
I
knew they didn't care.
right. So I walked out of there, almost ran out of there. No, this is a true story. Call my daughters and ask them. And I called my two oldest daughters, and I was bawling on the phone. And I said to them both, I said, as much as I have invested in you, don't you ever, ever, ever put me in one of these facilities. Don't ever do it. It wasn't done to my dad's mom. My dad's mom, when she got older and was suffering dementia, we moved her up to live in Wappingers Falls with her oldest daughter, my Aunt Ruth, and then we made sure that Aunt Ruth had what she needed to provide if she needed stuff. And Mark may be in the thread, and so Mark can attest to this. And then, now my grandmother on my mom's side is being taken. I said, don't you ever do that to me. Ever. I think that we have a requirement, right, to take care of our elders.
Our family.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a requirement to do that.
That's
But
so true.
yeah.
Like my dad and my mom both passed away at home. My grandfather as well. So my mother was the same as you. Don't ever put me in. Well, she was in the medical field, so she knew like these are not the places you go. You go here to die. That's it. And it's very true. What were you gonna say, Vincent?
My mother and I, well, actually 2 days ago, we celebrated my mother's seventh birthday. And but it brought back fond memories growing up when my dad had left my mom with 6 kids, and I mean it was tough, especially being a woman in Philadelphia with 6 kids and on welfare. So I've always had a job and would give mom money, and because that was my part to contribute into help. And that continued on, even to the point of when 8 years ago when she was diagnosed with cancer, with breast cancer. And I mean, I had opted my company cold, shut everything down, and moved in just so that I could take care of her. And I mean, from meals to going to the store to going to her treatments. I mean, the whole thing, and still financially, taking care of the house. I had some help from my other brothers and sisters, and I know they're on the thread too. But even to the point of her last days, it was me just going out there, and my sisters pitched in as well, and she didn't die in a home. I mean, when we found out that it was terminal and nothing else could be done for her, we were like, no, you're coming out of the hospital, you're coming home. My sisters from California flew down, and we took care of her, made her last days as pleasant as we could, to the point of just the simple fact that it's mom, and she has made some incredible sacrifices in her life so that I could have a better life, and always taught me to never take for granted the blessings that God has given us in terms of progression and growth, and using what we have to move forward, to take care of the family, our family as well. And sorry, but it's, to me, it's mom, and it's you sacrifice for her in your older days because you're able to, and the reason that you're able to is because of her sacrifices in your growing up. That's always been my stance.
Yeah. So I think, if nothing else, when we talk about 400 years of slavery and 400 years of still fighting the system that's not working, if nothing stayed with us, I think that one little thing about taking care of our elders stuck, at least in my family.
Yeah, but you know what though, Diane? But it has
It's changed in this generation.
yeah, and it's broken down for a lot of so I am and you can tell by the building of the company, right? I am all about family. I'm about lineage. I'm about um, empowerment, economic empowerment. I'm about black love. Not that I don't, love white folks and Asians and other folks too, but I am black, and so if I can't have a special love for black folks, then there's something wrong with me, right? So I understand that. I understand who I am, and I try to live that. Um, but and so even when I refer to myself, and we talked about this too, a lot of this stuff we've talked about before. I never introduce myself as Eric. I always introduce myself as Eric Dawson. Hi, I'm Eric Dawson. And I do that because it anchors me to my family, right? Because when I was growing up, my dad, my mom, my grandparents, they always told me, that, as a young kid, that I represented them in everything that I did. When I went outside, if I acted a fool, I embarrassed the family. Didn't embarrass myself, but embarrassed the family, right? If I excelled, then it was something that the family benefited from. And so I've always been like that. And so I don't just say Eric. I want people to know, no, I'm a Dawson, Eric Dawson. That's who I am. And then when I did that, people would say, "Oh, are you related to? Are you related to? Are you?" And happily, I'd say, "Yeah," or "No," but I'd like to know whether we're because I'm always trying to connect. But that doesn't exist anymore. You got folks out here with all kind of names, detached from, family, detached from lineage. They're living their best lives and just abandoned everything else. And so, that's why you see what you see now. They don't care. They don't care. They don't. There's no value to it. There's no value.
It's true. What's happening in the city of Newark locally? We have elections coming up. I know in Hillside we have the district seat are up for grabs, as well as the district seat leader chair seat will be up as well, which it should be because he's.
So why does any of that matter? Why does it matter?
Why does what matter? That these seats are up because
Yeah.
we have to save the masses. They don't know that they need to be saved.
But wait, but no. What I mean by that is this, and my dad said this to me too, and he said one of his greatest regrets was that he taught the younger generation how to win political seats, not how to seize power. And so, to me, if we're not seizing power, it is a gross waste of my time to focus on political seats. Because in the end, Diane, the only thing that happens, and we see it, the only thing that happens when somebody wins a political seat is they're able to control maybe 10 or so jobs that they can give to family and friends. That's it.
The political machine still goes on.
That's it. That's all they can do. They make no impact. They make no measurable change because they cannot. So what they're given as a reward for being able to win the seat and almost like shut up money and shut up, whatever, is they say, okay, so say Newark, right? The first thing a Newark councilman gets is to hire 5 people to work on their, which I just still think is ridiculous, that you've got a part-time job that has 5 people and the council president gets 6 people to work for them, right? So you get that.
Wait, don't forget 5 full-time people with benefits.
Yeah, 5 and a car and a freaking car.
That's a benefit.
No. Yeah, no. I think Diane was talking about medical benefits, right? Perks. The car's a perk, right? So they get perks. They get a card for expenses. It's ridiculous, right? But that's what they get. So it's like, here's what you've won, Johnny. You know what I mean?
I'm on down.
Yeah, and then what they do, what they also get to do, and this is not just in Newark, but all the other towns. You now get to, because your vote, even though you might be a ward council person, many of your votes impact the entire city. So now you leverage your vote for some jobs down at the sanitation department. You leverage your vote for a couple of jobs that you might need for some people who went canvas for you, in different places with it. So so like I said, and within reason, it's just kind of been, a spoken rule. I was gonna say unspoken.
What people should expect, Eric, if I work on your campaign and help you get to a higher position, shouldn't you be expecting that you at the top should be pulling me up as well, allowing me to then pull somebody else up and pull somebody else up?
So, you know what, Diane? So, this is a perfect freaking segue. So, here we go, right? Yes, I think that people should be pulling folks up. But you know how you can tell they're not? Because you have a Cantana who's been councilman for 30 years. You've got Mildred Crump, who is so embarrassed by her picture of how old she is now that she still posts a picture of when she first ran. You can't tell that that's the same woman. It should be illegal to do that. It's like false advertising. Wait a minute, but I'm being very no. I'm being very serious though. See, because when a voter gets that in the mail, that's who they think they're voting for. A younger person or whatever. You don't know that you're voting for, the geriatric ward of the city, right? So then you've got other people, right, who are now retreads. I heard that there are a couple people who are going to be running for council in Newark. And once they formally announce, then I will break out my 2x4 and start beating them upside the head. Because Diane, each and every one of them should be able to say to you, you know what? I had a mentorship program within my civic association, within my organization. And to your point, Diane, yes, I brought some people up and I've elevated them and they're qualified to run. So the fact that these people are running over and over and over and over again says to you that they're not interested in developing talent. You see, and so that's going to be a big part of my conversation when I start talking about all of these people who've been running since the 90s for the city of Newark. The 90s. And you ask them, give me two people from the 90s to 2021 that you have groomed, that you have confidence in, that can take the mantle.
Okay. So now we know what they did. What do we do to change that?
Well, that's what I was going to say. How do you, because it's about education. Because voting is all about popularity. That's basically what it is, popularity and money. That's it. So how do you educate the voter, because you can't do it once, it's got to be continuously, to let them know what they should be looking for in a candidate, because that's what's important. And if they don't see it, then what? How do we create our own candidate?
Diane, you know what? I am beyond that. Go ahead, Vincent. I'm gonna sit here and drink my Gatorade. Go ahead, Vincent.
Well, here is the problem in that, because you are absolutely right. People vote on candidates based on their popularity, and what we should look for in a candidate has an quandrum, because what we look for in a candidate in terms of their platform is that most people don't look for what the candidate is doing for society in general or as a whole. They look at the candidate as in terms of saying, well, what are you going to do for me personally? So that's why they just go with the popular person. And then you look for like the populace. Donald Trump was elected being
right. But answer the question that you asked. What do we do? That was the question you asked. So what do we do?
Well, if you let me, I'll get there. Want to take another sip of that drink, there, brother?
But I'm saying all you're doing is regurgitating what was already said. I want to get to what we do.
Okay, and if you stop interrupting me, I'll get there. What we do is simple in its ideology, but difficult in its actual being applied, is that we look at candidates and, well, one, we look at their track record, which, we say, well, where are they going? And what are they going to do? Because people are creatures of habit. So majority of the time what people have done, you can say with 62%, they will do it again. Then you look at you listen to what they're saying, and you don't just see them at one time. You see them again in diverse audiences, so that he's not playing one against the other. And then you look at their actual plan, because you can't just say, well, I'm going to, make this happen without a plan. And look at his plan and see how viable it is. And that are just some of the basics in looking for a candidate. Everybody gets up there and talk about, yeah, I'm going to drain the swamp. Okay, well, you drained the swamp, but you put in more alligators, your own alligators. So that is...
What the hell are you talking
Yeah, I'm trying to understand this. So, right. So, right. And but I didn't interrupt because I wanted to try to get to it. So
So what do we do?
Right. So here's what I'll say.
We look at people who are addressing the problems in our lives in a local election. We have each city, each county have issues, and we look at them saying, how are they going to solve this issue, and not just give us lip service.
Because you got to talk speak like you're speaking to third graders. You have to make it simple. How do people change the trajectory of their lives politically in their towns? You say, look for people that's going to have the same vision, blah, blah, blah. How do they find them? How do they decipher from the messaging that is being driven by the machine to look away from the light and look over here to finding or creating their own leader?
Right. So Diane, so here's the thing. Wait, no, Vincent, but I asked you to answer the question, and I thought you answered it, right? So look, we got here's what I'll say. We have to look at where people are. You can't look beyond where people are and expect them to do something extraordinary, right?
Correct.
So this whole conversation about discernment, because that's what you're talking about, right? Discernment. And what I'm saying to you is that the majority of people in our community lack the ability to discern.
Correct.
Right. So
that's why they vote for the pop. That's why
right.
they vote for the
So
popular
right. So to ignore that and say they must discern, because that's what you're saying. They must discern. And I'm going, but they lack the acumen to discern. And so if you're not talking about something that gets them from where they are to a place where they can discern. See, because we can't have the discussion about discernment because they lack the acumen. And so now, how do you take these people who are suffering from arrested development, who are dealing with socially transmitted diseases? I don't give a fuck. That's the disease. One of them. One of many. Take all of those, and then how do you now get them from that place to a place of discernment?
Okay, now,
so wait, let me tell you what's in the feed first, and then you go get to that. Michael Bosch in the feed says, what do we do? A show like this of informed community leaders can create a stay-informed show, and before a city official or politicians is up for re-election, they can review their progress, step a report card, and inform the public on whether they are ready for re-election or not.
So, wait a minute. Michael, with all due respect, when it came out that the water had lead in it, that was reported all over every major news organization's platform. All of them. All of them. And in the end, you know what we got for that, Michael? We got a bunch of docile people lining up, not to protest, not to demand answers, not to kick people out of office who are responsible for it, but we got a bunch of docile people to line up begging for bottles of water in 96-degree weather. What?
I can't remember where I heard it from, and they said, know what they want and give it to them, and then take it away gives you the power.
Well, so the simplest, my dad used to say, if you feed them, you can lead them. My father used to say, if you feed them, you can lead them. If they swallow, they will follow. There you go. So that's what's happening. I'm saying, how do you get them to a point of discernment? If we can agree that socially transmitted diseases, arrested development, blah, 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 that's where they are. Right? So we're not at a point where I can give a voter a piece of literature and ask them to evaluate it. We're not at that point yet. We're not there.
Putting your marketing hat on. Putting your marketing hat on, because everything is about marketing visual. Why not create a group that funds an organization to just put out the information on billboards in social media and everything that says blah blah blah, real short and quick, because repetitive information starts to sink in, and then as you lead up to the election, you start to tag those particular do nothings with that particular message that you were putting out before, and now it all coincides. So now the machine has something harder to fight against.
Yeah. See, Jody's saying that all this has been done. All of this, right. But you know what? Here's my marketing hat. And this is going to sound real brutal, right? We have had too much compassion for ignorant people. We have loved on ignorant people too hard. We have to begin to say, you are a danger to me. And we have to be able to move them aside, push them aside, kick them off the train. We have to do that. Now, I mean, I'm being very serious. And then you have to have a group of like-minded people, right, who have the courage to push forward, understanding that the masses are not going to follow. You just need literally, but here, and I got this from The Godfather, where Michael Corleone was talking. He said the problem. I'm paraphrasing what he said. He said the problem with this, when he was talking, when they were discussing infiltrators or traitors within their organization, he said the problem is they're all businessmen. You see, and they all have aspirations. So once you get to the cream, Diane, right? So once you abandon all of those ignorant folk, right? Because you classify them as being dangerous, so you move them all aside. You're in a very dangerous room now, because the rest of the people, the cream of the crop, they're smart people. Right? And I would say greater than 70% of those people in the room are just waiting for an opportunity to cut a deal somewhere. So in the middle of that space, you're trying to create something that's transformational and sustainable. Right? But you got to go into those rooms with your back up against the wall, because somebody's going to walk up behind you and shank you. And do you understand what I'm saying to you? So it is that. Right, it is that bad. So I would say that you're left having to create a nucleus of your own, and you just do the best you can. But what I will also say is this: be careful, because we have history to look at to see how those who tried to create a nucleus and tried to move forward, right? How because they recognized the dangers and all the things that I just pointed out, they were talked about in their own communities, right? They were isolated from their own people while they were trying to fight for them. And they were ultimately radicalized, they were demonized, they were criminalized, and then they were destroyed.
Correct. The lynching of the 20th century. And it happens to everybody. That is one of the biggest reasons why the best candidates for us don't run.
That's absolutely right.
See what can happen.
That's absolutely right. You're 100% right. They see what happens, right? So again, so how do we start? I'm going to go back to, again, we have to start at the very beginning. And it's going to be a generation or two. We have to first re-engineer education, right? We have to embrace what the Willie Lynch letters have done. And then we have to actively work to ensure it doesn't continue. But we're not doing that. So we're having a conversation about how to get some people who have been indoctrinated based on the practices of the Willie Lynch letter, how to get them somewhere else without having had counseling and deprogramming. Meanwhile, those people who are programmed are driving their kids to these same factories of death that are programming them. And so we're saying, well, the next generation is going to be better. And I'm going, no. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. You're not going to get a different result.
Much. So what does this mean for our people, Eric?
Diane,
Get out of this. I can't take it anymore.
Can I say something? I'll
Yes,
hate to
sir. Go ahead. Go ahead.
it goes back to what you said, this certain thing. And I was
Hey, Mike,
you got stuff in your background.
yeah, you got something in your background.
I got a lot of background on that, but I'm going to be quick. I heard a sociologist talk about discernment, and he was saying, and we're in this time that students will be able to discern thought. And when that happens, they're going to be in big trouble. But this is a very valuable conversation to have because the first discernment we got to get the people to understand is what kind of politician do you want? Because the politicians we have are capitalists, and their motives are to capitalize off the vote. So now, if you want a better quality of life, my suggestion is stop electing capitalists and elect somebody that knows fits your ideology. That's the first thing we have to do. And my only suggestion today is make sure you know what kind of politicians are giving your vote. Because if you're giving it to a capitalist, you're going to end up capitalized on. And that's basically all I got to say today. So, but discernment is you're going up the right road when you start talking about discerning thought, because we refuse to think critically of our politicians. Even if we give them our vote, we must continue to think critically about them. Like, what does this decision really critically mean? And we don't do that. We give politicians our vote, and then we become cheerleaders, and they give us some pom-poms, and then when we don't cheer for them, they want to take the pom-poms away.
Right.
So, yeah, but y'all going up the right path. I know y'all. Right, and Eric was pointing out, discernment for some people may be very complex, but it's looking at discernment is you have to look at what are your needs and what part does government play in the role of addressing it or not addressing it.
We understand that, but I'm saying to you again, it's like taking a first grader, right, and going, you know what, they're going to have to understand algebra. But if they don't have the building blocks to get to algebra in the 8th or 9th grade, right, if they don't have that, you can talk about algebraic equations and you could talk about formulas all you want. But until you recognize that child lacks the building blocks to understand all those X's and Y's and parentheses and all that stuff that you have on the board, until you recognize that they lack the building blocks to understand that.
Eric, what I said was not algebra. Let's look at the Newark situation. Here is one of the biggest detriments to Newark that government has a strong influence on. The water. The water is still bad, and people are in power and allowing it to be bad. So now it's time to replace that person. That is not a huge spiritual discernment. It's just
but it's not just common sense, Vincent. See, and the fact that you ignore that, so it's common sense for a woman to leave an abusive relationship, right? That's common sense. She got her ass kicked. She got her ass kicked again. She's got a fat lip, a black eye, and she's got her arm in a sling. Common sense to you is she should lead a relationship, right?
No, that's a reasonable deduction. Yes. But
Okay, now
here's
you're going to
the
mince
thing,
words
who
again.
constantly gets her butt kicked. Okay, one of the big reasons that she's still there is because she either has some financial obligations, too much emotional attachment, or the simple fact that she has no place else to go.
Okay, stop. 1 second. So wait. Emotional attachment to a political party or to people. Stockholm syndrome, right? Nowhere else to go. Right? See, we can go down the list. This is when we have the conversation and we talk about the abusive relationship that people have with their government, right? There's no difference. So all of those words that you just used could be applied to every senior citizen who is being chicken winged right now to vote a particular way. Every family member who is holding down a household of 6 people with their sanitation job and they're being threatened. We can go on and on and on and on.
Well, my Jamaican grandfather had a little thing that he used to tell me. He said, you stick your hand in the fire and you get burned. Okay? Now, when you get tired of getting burned, you learn not to stick your hand in the fire. Now, the same thing that we're continuing to deal with. It's not a simple fact of discernment with this emotional attachment of politicians. It's just a simple fact that some people just aren't tired of getting their hands burnt.
Wow.
And then there are other people who are.
Wow.
And those are the people that make changes.
Yeah.
For those people who have that attachment, I don't care what you say about this person. They are going to love who they're going to love.
Okay.
And it does not change. The only person who changes that is them.
Got it. So listen, today is Tuesday, Deidre Viney Day. Deidre Viney just called.
Hey,
Deidre! Woo-woo!
good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I was telling Eric, I was struggling this morning. I binge watched this show on HBO last night. It was the last 2 episodes. And it got me so wired I couldn't sleep. See, I was on Clubhouse. We could have hung out together. No, I can't be on that. You know, the crazy thing is, Diane, I woke up. I fell asleep for about an hour and a half with the TV on. Woke back up and my show was still on. So I was like, I got to finish watching. I could hear my husband downstairs on Clubhouse. He, too, is addicted. I just think a lot of good things can come out of Clubhouse. Eric, if you're not on it, you need to jump on it. Bro.
I know, Diane told me.
It is. You were telling Diane, there's some deals being made. There's some connections being made. There's tons of information out there. Like it's a wonderful platform. Wonderful. Fire last night. Damon John from Shark Tank came on. It was fire. Literally. People are in there talking to them, asking them questions. He's responding. It is fire. And I'm not telling y'all which Clubhouse because I don't want y'all in there.
Well, thank you for building up the community.
I'm telling you, nah. This is only for entrepreneurs that's really about it. This ain't just for folks hanging around. But today's your day, Deidre. What's up? Well, today I want to talk about transferable skills. We talked a lot about getting your resume together. We talked a lot about trying to find that right job opportunity. And one of the things about transferable skills, and I've got 10 of them, we can kind of dissect them a little bit if we have time for all of them, is transferable skills are just that. You can transfer them from job to job. So let's say you were in the restaurant industry. And as we all know, that particular role has been really devastated by this pandemic, or you were in hospitality. You have certain transferable skills that you can take with you, almost like a suitcase, to your next employer and add value immediately. And so these things here that I'm going to talk about are things that you can put on your resume, and you want to absolutely give specific examples in your interview for what you've done in your past job to demonstrate that you are portable. This transferable skill is portable to this new employer. All right, so you're ready to dig in?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So the first one is business strategy. Understanding the strategy of an organization is huge, right? What's the overall mission goal of the organization, and where does it want to be? So if you have a good understanding of a business strategy, you've shown that you've demonstrated that as your prior employer, and now you're going to this new employer. An employer is interested in that. They want to know how you put together this strategy. What are some things you did from a market research or organizational goals? What did you do that's going to benefit them? And that could be anything from sales, which is the engine of any organization, to finance, which is watching those numbers. So if you put together sort of a business strategy at your last employer, trust me, that's a great portable transferable skill.
So, Deidre, I have a question with that. I used to work at Sears, and inside Sears, they had a candy stand by the company was independent called Blums of California. They sold candy, and I was in college. And I didn't realize at that particular time that I was really in a sales position. I was doing customer service. I was doing reports because I had to keep up with the inventory. How do you explain that to an individual who's doing that particular position? So say, for instance, you talk about retail is now closed. I worked at the makeup counter, and all I did was I did people's makeovers at the counter and sold specific products for a specific brand. How do I translate that and say, now I want to go into maybe sales in another company and sell their product? Like, how do I translate that? What should I say to make it seem relevant from one to the next?
So in that particular instance, maybe that's not a strategy, right? Maybe these ones that I'm giving today, you might not have all of these, but one of the things you do have, you were a makeup counter person. You were doing people's faces. If you notice, when I go into Macy's, one of the things that these women do, or guys sometimes, is they approach you. Hey, do you want me to make over your face? Or hey, do you want to try this perfume? That's not an easy thing to do, to approach someone cold. So that right there shows me that you've got heart. You can transfer that kind of skill of being able to approach people with ease. And if you enjoy doing it or it didn't bother you, that's something that's portable to take to the next place. Also, whatever you were doing, maybe you had a goal for sales, right? Even if you worked in the makeup counter at Macy's, but they typically have a goal that you have to meet a certain number of sales per day or per week. You can demonstrate that and tell your future employer, I was able to meet this particular goal specifically, that they gave me, and this is how I did it. Even though Deidre came in here for lipstick for $15, next she walked out with $100 worth of makeup because I convinced her to get this, and this.
Right.
And so now you found that you're the kind of person that can upsell. I'll never forget this one story. Radio Shack is not really around too much, but I went into Radio Shack, I think, to get I don't even know what I wanted to get. I think I wanted to get a battery. I walked out with a daggone new phone. I said, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
Then I was talking to the guy. I said, Dad, you're a good salesperson, because I literally came in here to buy something that costs $10, and I walk out with a damn new phone. So if you're the kind of person that can do that, there are some people that are just gifted, oratory gifts. If you're the kind of person that not only can talk the good talk, but can convince the person that what they're getting is adding value to their life, trust and believe that is a valuable skill set for any employer.
Sure.
Okay.
So, number 2 is leadership and team management. So people want to hire leaders. Not everyone needs to be a leader, but they like to hire leaders. And so if you're going to be able to demonstrate to your new employer, based on where you worked at before, that you have the leadership qualities that they may need to lead their team, even if you don't take a leadership role right now, but you show the potential to be a leader, that is an absolute transferable skill, because now they can identify you. One, you're probably less expensive than hiring a brand new leader, at a VP level, let's say. And maybe you're at junior level or AVP level, and they can train you up or groom you to get to that leader role, and they can identify that diamond in the rough, and you can show them that you are that person. Then that's a great transferable skill that can take you to that next opportunity, and that could be anything. I mean, let's say you were a manager at a hotel. Hotels have been hurting tremendously. I love to interview people at hotels, because hotel managers have to watch the P&L statement. They have to hire people. They've got to have good communication skills. It's almost like their own business, these managers of hotels.
And so if you can show the leadership quality, I mean, that particular example is a leader, but let's say you were assistant manager, or let's say you were a front desk person at a hotel, and you can show that you were, responsible for, you have that quality of leading, then they want to talk to you. They want to consider you to come in maybe at this junior role with the potential to groom you up and just keep an eye on you and see if you really fit what you said in the interview.
Sure.
Number 3, problem solving. Everybody loves to problem solve, right? Everyone needs someone that's not just going to, manufacture this widget, but figure out, remember back in the day, Eric, we did that example I asked you in your interview about, what kind of things you solved. And you gave that great example about that product that you got from overseas or something like that. People love people that can think outside the box, right? Because we don't, as managers or owners, don't always have all the answers. And we love to identify talent that's going to come in. And you might have been doing something 20 years that's so antiquated. And this newbie 21-year-old might come in and say, Eric, have you ever thought about doing it this way? And now it might actually be cheaper and more efficient.
Yep.
So they love people that are going to come in and be a problem solvers, that are not just going to, check the box and do their job. You're going to do that too, but they want you to kind of come in and help them solve problems and improve their business. And that's going to make you marketable, and that's a portable skill that you can move anywhere. So give some specific examples for what you've done at your previous employer where you have solved problems that they may or may not have identified. Sometimes, the owner may think it's no problem. And then you come into them and they say, you know what, this is all messed up. Sometimes fresh eyes help coming into an organization because you don't see it. You've been doing the same thing same thing. It hasn't hurt anybody, so why not just keep doing it?
Right.
But a fresh set of eyes comes in and may say, why don't we try this way? And you try that way, and that way is way more successful. Maybe, like I said, maybe less expensive, and they have basically paid for themselves and then some. So, Deidre, how do you translate that in words? Like, everybody solves problems on their jobs for the most part. Either you're fixing something and you're resolving something to make it better, or you're just doing it because somebody else neglected to take care of it. How do you find specific things in your job to say, I did this to make it better? Because some people just see what they do as what people say is common sense to just do. They don't see it as resolving a solution. Yeah, that's a very good question. A point. So, like I said, all of these 10 skills I'm giving you, you may not have all of them, or you might not be able to think of a specific example. But I just challenge you. Sometimes it might be something so simple, you don't think about it until you really scratch the surface and look a little bit deeper. And it could be something as simple as, and for Express, one of my challenges is actually we have a person that answers my phones all the time, but she sometimes gets so stressed out because the phones can be a lot. I have some other Express offices where they have an automated attendant that answers the phones. So you might have been the person that came to me and said, you know what, I do love my job, but this phone sometimes gets out of hand. What if we did an automated attendant, technology, and let technology do the work for it, and then I'll check the voicemail, or when someone presses 0, they'll eventually get to me, but it frees me up to do some other stuff. And I might say, wow, that's a great idea, and I do some investigation and I implement something like that. You may not think it's a big deal because it helps save your job, but in terms of from a employer standpoint, you have solved a major problem. Now you're going to make your employee more efficient. Or it doesn't even have to be that. It could be something so small as, you guys restructured the day, and instead of working from 8 to 5, you guys decided to work 8 to 4:30, and from 4:30 to 5, you guys did a certain sales blitz to help get new business into the business. It could be something big, it could be something teeny, but just think about what you do day to day, and think about some problem you may solve. And if you can't think of anything, that's fine too. There's some other transferable skills that I'm sure you have. Next one is data analysis. So these are those number crunchers. I have a background in finance, and I love crunching numbers. And if you are the kind of person that also loves crunchy numbers, that is absolutely transferable from one place to another, because at the end of the day, you can sell all you want to sell, but if you don't understand if you're making money, then what are you really doing? We're not just doing this dance just to have a good time. We want to. If you're in business, you're. I would think one of your goals is to make money, right? You don't want to do something at a loss. And so, a number cruncher person, a data analysis person, is really critical to any business, because you, at the end of each day or each week or each month, you want to know, how well did I do, or where can I shave some expenses at, to make more money, or where do I have to spend my efforts, to make, what was more productive, what kind of advertising I do over here that yielded X, and maybe I might need to put some more money there to yield more of X. You know what I'm saying? So those people that crunch numbers are super critical to any organization. So if you can kind of come in and help them figure out, how can I make more money and how can I improve my bottom line?
Yes, because every manager knows that it's all about the numbers.
Absolutely. And you can't be shy about that, right? We are in business to make money and to survive and thrive. Right? No one wants to just make enough to just pay the bill. That's silly too. You want to make money so that you can reinvest it into your business and grow your business. So if you're the number cruncher, and you can bring that to the employer and say, hey, Eric, I found a way. I found that for some reason you're spending a ton of money on this particular packaging, right? Eric, I know you changed your packaging. I love it. But let's say they came to you and they say, listen, did you realize how much you're spending on this packaging? I did a little bit of research and I found this packaging is a little less expensive and it looks exactly the same. So not only did you do some data analysis around sort of an issue, but you helped them solve a problem and potentially it can drop that right to the bottom line.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Nope,
Communication skills. I mean, that goes without saying. When the money is anyone that you hire, you want to be able to communicate effectively. You can transfer that anywhere, and even if you're not in person or even talking to customers over the phone, you need to be able to interact with your manager, the owner, your fellow employees, and you want to be able to effectively communicate whatever you're thinking, right? Be it written or verbal. So those are really key skills to have, and you're going to demonstrate that in an interview as you're answering the questions, because it's one thing to say I'm a great communicator, right? That's easy to say. It's another to really demonstrate this is how I'm a great communicator, and the best way to demonstrate that is just to talk, right? Or write on a paper. So if you tell me you're a good communicator and you send me a follow-up email and you've got grammar mistakes all in there, how great of a communicator are you?
Sure.
How can I trust you to write letters to my customers if you can't even send me a basic thank you email that's without grammar issues? So, Deidre, what do you suggest when it comes to communication on the job, whether it's because you're giving praise to somebody or because you're showing that the person needs to have some growth within their job description? What is the best way in communication? Should the communication be in writing? And if so, is there a time period as to when you should respond to certain communication that's given to you that may be negative, or should it be in person? So I think what you're asking is, how do you best critique this person? Is that what you're asking? How do you best respond from being critiqued? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to address it from both issues. So if you are a manager and you're looking to critique someone, the best way to do it is always in person. Never text message, never email. I mean, those are very good ways of communicating, or over the phone. But it's better done face-to-face if you can. I know we're now working in a pandemic world where people are working from home, so maybe you do a Zoom call. But if you want to be able to give constructive criticism, my opinion, it should be at least, I should be able to hear you or see you. Now, on the flip side, to be able to take constructive criticism, everybody's different. I know some folks like to have things in writing so it's clear where their issues are. If you're that kind of person, maybe you ask your manager if they wouldn't mind writing it up first so that you have a chance to digest it and then come back to them with some action plans for how you're going to improve that particular area. But communication is a touchy one because we all communicate differently. And some, obviously much better than others. Like I said, some people are really good or have really good oratory skills, and some, struggle with that. I remember when I was in college, I took a public speaking class, and the reason I took it is I identified that was an area I needed to work on. And I did not like the class initially. I found it a big struggler, and you guys will not believe this, but believe it or not, I was super shy all through high school and grammar school. Didn't really speak up, was just a good student, but I never really spoke up. And I recognized that that's not going to get me far in life. I took a public speaking class to learn how to not just communicate to my friends, but to communicate to bosses and everybody else. And I had to find a way to do it in front of people. Stand up in front of people, prepare your essay, and memorize it and recite it in front of people. And so those key skills are needed for anything. So my son wants to be an engineer. So engineers are very linear thinkers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Math, science, however, he struggles with communicating effectively, with people. And so I made him take a public speaking class this summer, and I'm going to do it every year, honestly, because I did it in college. And so why not get him started earlier so that he can just build that muscle up to not be afraid of speaking in person. That's one of the number one fears is public speaking that people have. And so even as an engineer, engineers still need to present to customers and even be able to effectively give their presentation for whatever they're doing, be it written or verbal. And so that's a key skill that I think anyone needs to have. And it's not enough to say I'm a good communicator. You got to be able to demonstrate it.
That's a good point, Steve. And I think that's good, especially that you recognize that, but you're able to get your son out there ahead of it before he has the same, to kind of curtail the same challenges. I think that's
absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted him to do one of those oratory competitions, so I took him down. Mm-hmm. This is pre-COVID, and they did it with they do it. It starts as young as I think maybe 6, earlier than that. And these, I was so impressed by these kids, and I took him and my daughter just because I love to have stuff rub off on them.
Right.
And I was just so impressed. But one of the things I recognized right away is that my son was not there yet.
Yeah.
If I had thrown him in front of people to present like that, he would have just, fallen into a corner. So I had to start him smaller in a smaller group to build up his confidence so that he eventually, or maybe not. Maybe that's just not his goal to speak in front of people, and that's okay too. But I want him to at least be able to speak in front of a small group and feel comfortable giving a presentation.
Sure.
Yeah, like Toastmaster.
Exactly.
Organization for kids specifically just for them.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. So my Jack and Jill chapter is supposed to do a similar thing to a Toastmasters for the children, and I'm super excited because I think he'll take to that because he knows everybody, and it's a comfortable surrounding with him, and he knows they're only coming from a place of love when they give criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking forward to getting him started on that. We haven't done it before; it's our first year doing it, so I'm excited about that.
Cool.
Yeah, we did that with my daughter with our Jack and Jill chapter.
Of course you're Jack and Jill too, Vincent.
Yeah, well, Jack and Jill's dad.
About that. Okay, that's a sidebar joke for future conversation, Vincent.
Yes.
Yeah, sidebar thinking that's a little shade, but Deidre's not shady. I am. But what's your next tip?
My next one is time management.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, we can all use a little bit of this, right? Some more than others. And the good thing about technology is that can really help you with your time management if used effectively.
Yeah.
And everyone likes someone that spends their time wisely. You don't want to be the employee that takes all day on a project where another employee might have finished it in half the time and done some other stuff because they were able to manage their time effectively. So you want to be an employee that can show and demonstrate examples of how you have managed your time in a day in the most effective and efficient way. You know, it's not about just getting it done quickly. It's about getting it done quickly and well. You know, and so every employer wants to be able to get the maximum amount of work out of every employee. So you need to be able to demonstrate that they're going to be able to rely on you to come into work and not just be a clock watcher, but you're going to be the kind of person that's going to plan your day. Like for me, I've taken a couple of time management classes, and one of the things that I've learned is that I write down. I try to do only 3. As I've gotten better over the years. 3 things that I want to accomplish that day. And before I leave, I write it down. So before I leave, I look at my thing and I say, did I accomplish those 3 things? And sometimes I do. Sometimes they're super big and they might take a couple of days. And so I move it to the next day.
Right.
But maybe take a time management class if that's an area that you know you have some issues you need to work on. But if you can demonstrate to your employer, your future employer, that you have managed your time effectively and you give them specific examples for what you've done to manage your time, why wouldn't they want to hire someone like that? Because everyone wants a productive employee. No one wants a slacker. No one wants a clock watcher. Nobody.
Because they're a drain of resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, you're stealing time.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there lollygagging and watching Netflix at work, and you're
Facebook
working on that presentation, you're stealing time. So they want someone that's going to be effectively working, and that leads to my next one, which is work ethic. They want someone that's going to show up on time and is going to do the work. You know, and I can't stress the importance of showing up on time. You think it seems so basic, just show up to work on time, but a lot of folks have a challenge with that. If you are supposed to start work at 8, coming in at 8:05 is not acceptable. It might seem no big deal, but it's 8:05.
Yeah.
And if your job starts at 8, it starts at 8. Now, if you can't get to 8:05, then maybe your starting time needs to change to 8:15. But and not only just being on time, but a work ethic, right? I've been working since I was 13 years old. Now, babysitting, then I had worked at Burger King, then I worked at TJ Maxx, and getting to work on time and doing your job effectively is what companies want to see. And so, you know, a work ethic is going to be challenging to demonstrate in an interview, right?
So
because there's nothing like it until you start working, right? Everybody can talk a good talk until you guys show up the next day and you're late.
Okay, could you repeat the cliche?
What's the cliche?
About what's acceptable late if you're...
Oh yeah, that's what my son's band teacher always says. So he said, I always mess it up, so you'll correct me if I mess it up. So being on time, being early is early, being on time is late, and being late is unacceptable. Something like that?
No, being early is on time.
Oh, being early is on time, right.
Being on time is late, and being late is unacceptable.
Got it, yes. My band teacher, my son's band teacher, marching band teacher, always says that to him. And it's so good now. It drilled into my son. And if we're even trying to be late somewhere, he has to be somewhere, he is upset. And I love that about him because my husband is the complete opposite. It makes me crazy. I have to add an hour on anything we have to do. My son will be on time for everything, and I love that. It's a really good, and that's how you build up that work ethic.
Right.
Being on time and coming to work ready. Right? I'm not going to come to work and then go and get Dunkin' Donuts. No, get your Dunkin' Donuts before you get to work.
Absolutely.
Okay, wait. I have an example. I had a conversation with an employee about that, coming to work and then leaving to get breakfast and then coming back. Yeah, that's not going to work. And I told them, you need to eat breakfast, before you get here. When you get here, you're supposed to be working. I'm not paying you to eat. So one particular time she was in the office, she brought her lunch, brought her breakfast, and she was eating breakfast, and I was working on her computer, updating it and stuff. And I looked at her and I said, so you don't have anything to do? And she said, well, you told me to bring my breakfast and eat it here. I can't work on my computer. And I thought to myself, well, there's nothing else you can do, but okay. But yes, that's a bad thing to do. Yeah, that was one that, back in the day, we don't do that at a lot of places anymore, but you have to clock in and clock out. If you're in offices, they typically don't have that. But people used to get fired. I used to work at Sears in the mall. I'll never forget this. And this one of his employees that I knew, he used to always clock in and be like, Deidre, I'll be right back, and walk into the mall and go get something to eat. And then he wound up getting fired because they were like, dude, you clocked in at 8 and you came back at 8:30, and he kept doing it and thinking it was cool. And no, if you're there at 8, you got to stay there. You can't take a break as soon as you get to work. That's ridiculous.
Teacher, is it acceptable nowadays to eat your breakfast at work at your desk? Is that acceptable?
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you technically can work and eat, and so a lot of people even work through lunch, right? Because you're using a computer, you're on the phone, and you're snacking with your food or sipping on your drink. So I think it's possible. Is it the best use of your time? No. My staff, I like them to take their lunch because I want them to just, even for 30 minutes, go outside, get some fresh air, refresh yourself, then come back. Because, being in the staffing world, as sexy as it looks, can sometimes be stressful. People don't go to work. Clients are upset about someone that didn't come to work or whatever it is. And I want them to take a moment and refresh and then come back, in a half an hour or an hour and be ready to finish the rest of the day. But some people don't have that luxury and they have to work what we call work through lunch, and they eat at their desk. So I still think it's okay. Another one is commercial awareness. You say, well, what does that mean? So commercial awareness is understanding your company's mission and their goals, demonstrating your knowledge of the sector and awareness of the economic and the political issues that might affect that particular business, knowing the major competitors, and understanding the commercial priorities of the business. So if you are showing a commercial awareness and you can demonstrate that in an interview or on the job, employers love that, right? If you understand that, there's a certain competitor that you guys are trying to get a piece of their market share, and you can come in there and help problem solve for how you're going to get a piece of that market share, that is adding, value to that employer, or you're understanding the mission and goals of the organization. You guys want to grow 20% this year, and this is how you're going to do it. That goes back to the strategy, right?
Especially if you're bringing
some things you're going to put in place to help grow that business 20%. It's one thing to put it on paper; it's a whole other thing to implement it.
Sure.
You can't just be about talking it. You got to talk the talk and walk the walk, as they say.
So
commercial awareness is especially good if you're bringing in the Black or urban dynamics of specific product use or trends.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
go ahead, Diane.
So, Deidre, how do you express to a potential business owner or your potential boss how to strategize to increase income without stepping over the bounds if you're in, like, for instance, customer service, if you're not in the sales position, if you're in, I don't know, if you're working in the mailroom and you notice something that could help them save money or to do better. How do you approach them about that, even in the interview process, as to what you've seen over the years that can benefit them?
So in this particular instance, I love writing things down first. Getting your thoughts on paper is a two-pronged approach. It helps you to kind of really clarify what you want to say, and it's a paper trail. So write down your thoughts really clearly in an email format to senior management. You might not press send, but you at least write it down so you have it. And then schedule a meeting with your manager and discuss it and say, I think that one of the things that we're doing is inefficient, and this is why, and these are some things that I've recognized over the years, and here's my proposal for what we can possibly do to improve this problem. You've done a couple things. You've identified a problem, right? You come up with a solution. You come up with a solution that aligns with the company's goals, right? Because let's say you came up with something that's going to save them money. Who doesn't want to save money? And so now you've come up with a solution to save them money. Why wouldn't they want to hear you? If the idea sounds feasible and easy to implement, because sometimes managers can be blinded by what goes on the line, and they don't know. They might just be, number watchers, and they don't know what's down in the mailroom or in customer service department until it's brought to their attention, and then they're like, "What? We've been doing it? What? How long? For what?" And you can just say, listen, based on what I've seen, we could probably save us, $200,000 to $300,000 over the next 3 years. Who wouldn't want to hear that?
Right.
So I
Because
want to,
you just exhibit everything that you talked about.
yeah,
Problem solving,
yeah.
business strategy, leadership, data analysis, and communication skills and time management.
Yeah, I want to say in principle, you do want to do that, but for those who are watching, you also just in practical, practicality, you have, and we talked about this before. You have various cultures, at companies, and you could have somebody, even though you see a way to be more efficient somewhere, there are people sometimes who've worked in that inefficient way for a decade or so, right? And they're comfortable. And so you taking that information and sharing it, all I'm saying is I agree that you want to do it. You just have to be skillful at doing it and recognizing the possible landmines, right? And those are people. Those are people who are, like I said, who are comfortable. People who might feel threatened with the possibility of changing how something has been done for a very, very long time. Um, and I've known people, me included, who, in an attempt to do that, found myself the
Alienated.
enemy of a lot of people because they didn't want to change, right?
So,
So
That's interesting.
can your communication skills outweigh the politics of the office?
What do you mean by that? Elaborate.
Oh, I
what
get that
Eric was
question.
saying, you've got a way to do it, but the politics in the office is that people are comfortable doing it that way because they've been doing it that way for so long. So bringing in that new business strategy, can these skills or your communication skills override or soften the actual backlash of the politics?
Yeah, I think so. And so one of the things, I'm going to give you the example of this daggone movie I binge watched yesterday, was just to give you the quick and dirty, the woman that was kind of the main character is a newbie. And she was getting evaluated after being on the job for 6 months. And she interviewed with the manager to keep her job. And one of the things the manager said was, we want to keep you here because we recognize that you have the ability to change the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you walk into an organization and you have to you have to conform to a certain degree, right? That's a given. But sometimes, as a good communicator, verbal and written, and dealing with the politics, you can actually change the culture. And sometimes it might be as easy as one toxic employee that has to go. And you come in and you identify who that toxic employee is, and you figure out how to best communicate with that toxic employee, or that toxic employee hopefully will eventually either get fired or leave. But communication and being able to navigate the political climate of an organization is challenging, particularly if it's a bigger organization, and depending on where you are in that cogwheel of responsibility, right? If you're the low man on a totem pole, you're not trying to come in there guns blazing. You just got to sit back and observe what's going on before you kind of go in with your recommendations. Because no one may take you seriously because you're the brand newbie person, and the toxic person might be your manager.
Yeah.
And so you want to kind of come in and sit back, keep your nose clean, do your job effectively and efficiently, have that good work ethic, all these things I'm talking about, before you can kind of come in and make suggestions for changes, because it might be something that let's say the toxic employee is a peer, but this is a peer you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and if you go complaining to senior management constantly about your peer, that person may alienate you and not want to work with you. It might sabotage your work.
Sure.
So you got to walk on eggshells a little bit as it relates to kind of coming into a brand new organization. Or you might be there for a long time and the newbie person gets hired and they become toxic right away. you know, and so you have to be able to navigate that landscape in a way that it can benefit everyone, but sometimes it just takes time. And it takes time, and it takes being observant, and it lends itself to my very final point, which is listening and providing feedback. You know, one of our most important skills is listening, right? They say God gave us 2